And those who put the work and effort in, because I know how it is trying to organize an event in our community. So I really am thankful to be able to share with you some of my primary research or first-hand research, and I'd really be honored to be able to have the forum and the time to really share with you what I think are critical issues as it relates to Africana studies. So the theme of building for eternity, I thought about how can I fit into the theme. And I thought that there would be really no better person than really to look at Dr. Chancellor Williams and his work. There's some people who believe that his work is diminished because someone was mentioning earlier because he didn't list a bunch of footnotes. But he provided a different paradigm because he said he erased about 270 or so footnotes because he would have had to footnote the footnotes because those who have been footnoted were Europeans who were providing their own interpretation of the African historical experience. So he said that he used the case study approach as he went out in the field and did research throughout Africa. And he provided this in his monumental book, and what I want to share today or tonight is excerpts from his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. The subtitle is Great Issues of a Race from 4500 BC to 2000 AD. What's interesting about it, he wrote the book in 1971. So he's projecting 30 years in the future. And Chancellor Williams inspired my work and the work of so many others. So that's really what I want to share today as we look at this theme of building for eternity, because Chancellor Williams, as an elder scholar and historian, laid out a path and a framework that if we embrace it, we cannot do anything other than great things. So Brother Fela, can you pass it out? So I'm going to take some excerpts from the book. So what I'm giving you here are excerpts that you can follow along. I'm going to show slides to really pinpoint the ideas of Chancellor Williams and how it relates to our work in the field of classical African studies and classical African civilizations. And so that's what we're going to do today. Can you hit the right place? That one right there. So these are, brothers, okay with the video? We have enough light?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So anyway, following in the footsteps of Dr. Chancellor Williams, that's really what my focus is. And the last time I really spoke about Chancellor Williams and his work was probably around 92 or 93. So this is an update 15 years later as I've done more and I've learned more and have applied more of what Chancellor Williams has laid out. And one of the things we should know is that Chancellor Williams is a noted scholar. People are familiar with several of his books. He wrote a number of them, but The Rebirth of African Civilization was the first book in '61 that put Chancellor Williams on the map here. And we're not actually sure when Chancellor Williams was born, what particular year. You see many different years for when he actually was born, so we're not really sure. But he certainly did pass in '92, so you have many different dates of when this eminent scholar actually was born. And of course, The Destruction of Black Civilization, which has become a classic. And it's the preview in the first section of the book that is absolutely critical. And if we look at the preview, this is when we get insight of what research methodology should be about. First-hand methods, first-hand research, and exactly how one should go about his or her work. That's what Chancellor Williams lays out. Now, he's not the first to do first-hand research or primary research. In fact, there were others as well. Now, you all know who these individuals are here. On the left, we have Dr. Clark, Dr. John Henry Clark in the middle, Dr. Ben, and then Chancellor Williams. He was a few years older than these great scholars, but this is a classic picture of those who've been working in the field of classical African civilizations. But the one who, so we should frame this. This is a classic image of three of the great historians who have helped us recover our historical memory. And we're still in that process. But the one who's the father of African studies, who's the teacher, the literal teacher of Chancellor Williams at Howard University, is none other than Dr. William Leo Hansberry, who clearly pioneered the field. Hansberry didn't have people that can even look at his dissertation on Kush and Ethiopia because no one really had the expertise. And he pioneered the Black Studies Department at Howard University in 1922. And so he was finally honored 50 years later, but during his time he was not given the due. So Hansberry never published any of his work. His students tried to get him to publish, but it was after he passed on that Joseph Harris edited the notes and lectures of the great William Leo Hansberry, and you have these two texts here that are available, and they're a summary of his work, his lectures, his notes. But Hansberry must give credit. So before Chancellor Williams, there was Hansberry, who not only taught in the field, but also he blazed the path of being able to do library work, archival work, and then going to do the necessary field work. Now the handout you have, I don't know if it's too dark, but this to me is the most important premise of Chancellor Williams. This here is insight from one who's done the work. And he says, but the greatest of all issues is right here in the general agreement that at the very earliest period known to mankind, an African civilization in the areas later called the Sudan and Egypt were fully developed, with all the arts of civilized life already matured, its beginnings being placed so far back into the early history of the world that it is beyond the reach of man. Can you imagine that? He said that the beginnings of the culture, it goes so far back into the Stone Age that we don't even have a date on it. We don't have a handle. I think we need the ones in the back, maybe the backlights, not these. Yeah, if you cut the ones on the other side, so we can have the backlights. But this here is, to me, is the most crucial statement by Chancellor Williams, because if we go back far enough, yeah, it's probably better. If we go back far enough, there is an advanced civilization in the Sudan and Egypt. And this is what Chancellor Williams is saying. And this can only be known by field work. So this is what I want to share with you as well, the field work that I did in '07 and what the update is regarding the Merowe Dam. Now, in terms of the focus of Dr. Williams' study, this is it. Now, this is a part of the handout you have. He says, my inquiry, therefore, was concerned with black civilization alone, what the blacks themselves achieved independently of either Europe or Asia. This was an entirely new approach to the study of the history of the blacks. He's pioneering a whole new methodology, a whole new approach, as opposed to simply quoting what others had to say. This is why he decided not to footnote a bunch of white authorities on the African experience. So to criticize a man for doing pioneering work is really a weak criticism, because if you're the pioneer, who is there really to quote other than yourself? All right. And this is what Chancellor Williams is presenting. And not only that, but if we do the work, we can verify or not what was his conclusions, if they're credible or not. That's why it's important to do the first-hand research. And Chancellor Williams, being an elder scholar, what he does in his book, he actually lays out the step-by-step research methods. And that's what's so critical about the work of Chancellor Williams. And so he actually all right, he also goes on to say regarding field studies, he says, I regard direct investigation in the field and in Africa as the highest importance. So in other words, doing first-hand research in the field, there's nothing more important than that, because we go to the sites and sources so that we can know. And this is what Chancellor Williams pioneers. He says this field work should be undertaken only after thoroughgoing research and written and other documentary sources. When I read this some 20 years or so, this is what I used as a roadmap to go to the archives and the museums and the libraries and gain insight, gain a body of knowledge, and then do the work in the field. So I actually used the framework of Chancellor Williams, and this is why he laid out his step-by-step approach, so that the sociology of knowledge is always important. So it's not a matter that one